Here's our agenda today. First thing we're going to do is I'm going to do the starter with you. This is the last lesson of the chapter. So this is the last thing that we are officially learning and practicing. And then asynchronous time, we're going to do level work. And then for homework, you are going to finish and submit your level work. And then please submit your Schoology quiz. So do your next Schoology quiz. This Schoology quiz is still based off of so you've done 2 already. This is a 3rd one, and then it's still going to be combined into your 1 test grade, okay? Tomorrow, we're going to have 2 Edgenuity quizzes, and that's all you're doing in class. So you don't have anything other than 2 Edgenuity quizzes tomorrow. One of the ones will be towards this test grade, and then there's going to be 1 more that's just by itself. So let me say that again. Tomorrow, you have 1 Edgenuity quiz that's just going to be counted by itself as its own test grade, okay? It's not going to be averaged in with anything else. So for those of you who are interested, I wanted to remind you that we have IXL that you can do. It is due tonight at midnight. So here's the IXL. The second group is due 11-9. That's tonight. Okay. Oh, can't click it. So these are the ones that you have to do if you want your 10 points extra credit. But please remember what I told you earlier last week and the week before. If you want this group of 10, then this group of levels have to also be done too. Okay, so don't just do these 5 if you didn't do these 5. So the only kids that really can just do these 5 and get the extra 10 points would be Emily, Owen, Luis, Ella, and Sienna, because they already did these. Okay, but everyone else, if I didn't call your name, you have to do this and this if you want the 10 extra credit points. So that's just something to consider. Okay. All right, let's get started with today. For starter, if you have maybe like a pencil and a pen, like 2 different colors, just like how we did on our video notes, or like a highlighter and a pencil or something, it's just easier to see what you're working with because we're going to be doing a lot of shading. So maybe take out 2 things if possible. And then online kids, I'm sorry, I did not share my screen yet. I have to do that. Okay, so hopefully we can all see this now. All right, the first things that you're going to be doing on your level work today is saying yes or no, is this a solution to the system? So remember when you do this, all you're really doing is you're plugging in your X and your Y numbers into each of these equations to see if it's a true statement. That's all you're really doing. So let's try for the first one. So you have Y. So for this first one, you have Y, which is -10. It should be less than or equal to -X, which is 9. So it's -9 plus 9. So if I solve that, that should say -10 is less than or equal to -9 plus 9 is 0. Is that true or false?
Yes.
Yes, it's true. So far, so good. So far, it is a solution. So let's try the next one then. Okay, so let me plug it in with the second one. So this Y would be -10 is greater than or equal to -2 times X, which is 9, plus 12. Yeesh, that is a lot of work for a Monday morning. So let's type it in. -2 times 9 plus 12. So I don't have to do any work. Is just -6. So this is saying -10 is greater than or equal to -6. Is that true or false?
False.
False. It's not right, right? So if one of them is wrong, then what's my final answer?
No.
No, right? Both of them have to be right, yes and yes, for this to be a final answer, yes. But if even one of them or both of them are false, then my final answer is no. This is not a system to both of these lines. It's a system to one of them, but not both of them. So that's the first thing you're going to do for your level work. That's how you can show your work. Just plug in your numbers. Okay, number 2. Next thing you're going to do is you're going to match the system of linear equations with or inequalities with the graph. So basically, you're just graphing them, okay? I feel like I explained very in detail on Friday how to graph by calculator, but maybe I didn't really explain very well how to graph by hand. Go ahead, Jeff. So let me do that more in detail today, okay? So my first one is y is less than 5. So if I wanted to graph this by hand, because it's just the number 5, I'd go to the y-axis, because it's the y, and then I'd go to the 5 and draw a dot. So remember, if it's just going to be 5, is it a vertical line or is it a horizontal line?
Horizontal.
Horizontal. Please remember, for every line you draw, you always have to have 3 dots. Well, if it's horizontal, draw 3 dots anywhere, horizontal. And be careful of the line. Do you think it's a filled-in line or a dotted line? Dotted, right? Because there's no line underneath. So it's a dotted line. So every line that you draw has to have 3 dots and then 2 arrows. Okay, now let's shade, because you do need to know how to shade it by just like understanding the shading. This says y is less than. So if this says y is less than, I'm going to my y-axis. I'm saying, well, less than would be all down here, right? More than would be up here. So that's why if it's less than, I'm going to shade to the bottom, which actually ends up being this whole entire grid. Kip, your question, are we doing video notes today? You are not doing video notes today, okay? Because this was the last lesson. So today, so you're doing starter right now, level work by yourself, and then your homework is 1 Edgenuity quiz, and it's the next one that's opened up. So if you have any more Edgenuity quizzes that you still need to take, make sure you do that. Okay, now let's do this one. So let's graph this by hand first, and then I'll show you how to do it by calculator again. So y is greater than or equal to 1x minus 1. So if that's what I know, don't I know that my my slope is 1 over 1, right? Because it's 1. So it's 1 over 1, which is my rise and my run. And then my y-intercept, my b, is -1 because it says -1 right here. So this is how I graph by hand. First thing I always do is I go to my y-intercept, 0, -1, right, the b. And then I go rise over run. So from this point, I go rise 1, run 1, rise 1, run 1. Well, there are my 3 dots. You can draw dots all everywhere if you want to, but you really only need 3. I have a line underneath. So is it a solid or a dotted line? Solid line. So all the way through, arrows on both sides. Okay. This says y is greater than. So if y is greater than, do I shade up or do I shade down? Up, right? So if y is greater than, go to the y-axis. Greater than would be all right here, all this section. So then shade this entire section. So then it would look like this. So remember how we said the darkest shading place where both shadings meet, that is my final answer. So even though there's just shading here, none of these are answers because that's only where one shading is. Okay, here where the 2 colors meet, that has to be my answer. Okay, so let's do something slightly more difficult then. Number 3. For this one, I can't, oh, sorry, before I do that, maybe let me remind you again how to do it by calculator. Remember by calculator, you go apps, inequals, and then you type in both equations. So I have y is less than, so alpha, and then less than. Okay, so y is less than 5. And then for this one, y is greater than or equal to x minus 1. I hit graph. There's the first one we drew. There's the second one we drew. So I can compare. And then if you don't know where to put your dots, you can always go second and then table. So this is like the first line, 0, 5, 1, 5, 2, 5, 3, 5. Your second line, the dots would be like 0, -1, 1, 0, 2, 1, 3, 2, like that. That's how you read that, okay? But that is basically what this picture looks like right here. Okay, sorry. Now let's do number 3. X plus y is less than or equal to 4. What's the first thing I have to do, guys? What do we think, Cameron? Yeah, so you have to solve for y. And the way we solve for y is to subtract x. So I'm going to minus x on both sides. Oops, I wrote plus. Minus x on both sides. So this equation really is y is less than or equal to negative x plus 4. And I normally always want to write the x's first and then the numbers just so that I know like what is my slope, what is my y-intercept. So my slope is, does anyone think they know? -1. So it's -1 over 1, which is my rise over run. So Garrett, -1 over +1, not -1 over -1, because that would simplify to +1. Only one of them has to be negative. And then my y-intercept, Emily, what number is my y-intercept? 4. So when you plot it, it would just be a 0, 4. So 0, 4 is right here. From this point, I go -1 over 1. So I go down 1, right 1, down 1, right 1. So it's actually really easy to graph by hand. In fact, I feel like it's much faster. Solid or dotted line? Solid, because of this line underneath. Okay, so this says y is less than. If y is less than, do I shade to the right or do I shade to the left? Left. This is y. If this y is less than, go to your y-axis. You see how the less than is all of this stuff over here? Because greater than is way up here. Like if you compare to the line, greater than is up here, less than is down here. So if it's less than, you're shading down to the left. So that's what it looks like. Okay. This one, I'm going to scooch it over just so we have more room. I have x minus y is less than or equal to 5. All right, I need to solve for y. What do you think I should do? Minus the x. Okay, so let's minus x on both sides. So don't forget you end up with a negative y is less than or equal to negative x plus 5. I normally like to write the x's first and then the numbers just because that's your slope and that's your y-intercept, mx plus b. I'm not done yet. Now what do I do? Reed, what do you think?
Divide the entire equation by -1.
Yes, and the reason why is because this is negative y. That's -1y. So I'm going to divide everything by -1. So like that gets divided by -1, that gets divided by -1. So I have y. Do I keep the symbols the same or do I flip it? Flip it. Okay, so this is, some of you have forgotten this from 2 chapters ago, and that's okay. So I'm here to remind you again. If you ever divide by a negative, your symbol always flips, right? So I'm dividing by -1, so my symbol flips. Okay, so this one, negative x, remember, is just -1x. So -1 divided by -1 is a positive 1x. And then positive 5 divided by -1 is -5. So now I can figure out my slope is 1 over 1. And then my y-intercept is 0, -5. So 0, -5 is way down here. Rise over run, up 1 over 1, up 1 over 1. So those are my dots. Solid line because it was or equal to. It was greater than or equal to. So if it's greater than or equal to, am I shading this tiny little triangle on the right or all of this on the left? All of it on the left because it's greater than, right? If it's greater than, it's way up here. All of this is bigger. This stuff down here is smaller. So if it's up here is bigger, then I'm shading all of this. But keep in mind, my only answer is this wedge right here, this little slice, because that's where the green and the red meet. Some of you are getting a little confused with like how to solve for y. So when you were at this point, another option you could have taken to solve for y could have just been to add y on both sides. And you would have gotten x is less than or equal to 5 plus y. And then you would have subtracted 5 on both sides. So you would have gotten y on this side, my symbol, x minus 5. Notice how it's the same thing as what we wrote here. Y is greater than x minus 5. Y is greater than, because the alligator is eating the y, x minus 5. So you could do either way. Some people prefer to keep the y positive, so you add it over, or divide by -1. Either one's fine. Any questions so far? All right, backside. So really this is just saying for this backside, remember my solutions are where the two darkest shaded areas meet. So really my solution is just right here. Okay, so my next answers are just going to be yes or no. 0, 1 is right here. So is that a yes or a no? Yes, it's in the darkest area. So then my answer is yes. Okay, next one, 1, 0, which is right here. Is that a yes or a no? No, right? It's in one of the shaded areas, but it's not in both. So if you have a system, it has to be in both. That's why that one is no. Next one is 1, 1. Oh, that's on the line. There was a rule with on the line. Yes. Okay. Why is this one yes?
Because it's a solid line.
Because it's on the solid line, right? If it's on the dotted line, it's a no because it doesn't include it because that's why it's dotted. And if it's on the solid one, that means it's a yes. Okay, so for your level work today, I don't think there should be any questions, any issues. All of the answers are on Schoology, so please make sure you check. Your homework is the next Edgenuity quiz.